The Vietnam War, a nation torn. A generation changed. The Vietnam War was one of the most defining conflicts of the 20th century. It reshaped world politics, divided nations, and left wounds that lasted for generations. What began as a colonial struggle for independence became a global confrontation between communism and democracy. When World War II ended in 1945, Vietnam was still part of French Indochina. During the war, Japanese forces had occupied the region, weakening French control. As Japan surrendered, Vietnamese nationalists led by Ho Chi Minh declared independence. He quoted America's own Declaration of Independence, hoping for recognition from the West. Instead, France returned to reclaim its colony. The First Indochina War began. Ho Chi Minh's Viet Minh forces, organized under communist principles, fought the French army using guerrilla tactics. For 8 years, the struggle raged until 1954. When French troops were surrounded and defeated at Dien Bien Phu, the Geneva Conference followed, dividing Vietnam at the 17th parallel communist North Vietnam under Ho Chi Minh and anti-communist South Vietnam led by NGO Dinh Diem. National elections meant to reunify the country never took place. Diem, backed by the United States, feared a communist victory. The division hardened, and both sides prepared for renewed war. Across the world, the Cold War intensified. The Soviet Union and China supported communist movements, while the United States adopted a strategy of containment. American leaders believed in the domino theory. If one nation in Southeast Asia fell to communism, others would soon follow. Aid and military advisors flowed into South Vietnam, but Diem's government was corrupt and repressive. His policies against Buddhists and political opponents fueled rebellion. In rural villages, a new insurgency known as the Viet Cong emerged, supported by the North. By the early 1960s, U.S. involvement deepened. President John F. Kennedy sent more advisors, helicopters, and special forces units. After his assassination in 1963, President Lyndon B. Johnson inherited the crisis. That same year, Diem was overthrown and killed during a military coup, leaving the South unstable and divided. Everything changed in August 1964 with the Gulf of Tonkin incident. U.S. destroyers reported attacks by North Vietnamese patrol boats. Though evidence was uncertain, Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, giving Johnson authority to use force without declaring war. The door to full-scale conflict had opened. In 1965, American Marines landed at Da Nang, the first combat troops on Vietnamese soil. U.S. numbers quickly expanded from a few thousand to more than 500,000. The United States committed overwhelming firepower, artillery, napalm, and bombing raids under Operation Rolling Thunder. Yet the enemy refused to fight conventionally. North Vietnamese troops and Viet Cong guerrillas relied on surprise attacks, ambushes, and the vast Ho Chi Minh Trail winding through Laos and Cambodia. The dense jungles of Vietnam became a brutal battleground. Soldiers endured heat, leeches, and unseen snipers. The line between civilian and combatant blurred. Villages were destroyed in the crossfire, and trust vanished between armies and the people they claimed to protect. Major battles unfolded around places like Hue, Khe Sanh, Da Nang, and Saigon. The Siu Chi tunnels allowed the Viet Cong to appear and disappear beneath the earth. American commanders measured success in body counts, a grim arithmetic that ignored political reality. In January 1968, during the Lunar New Year holiday known as Tet, North Vietnam launched a massive surprise offensive. More than 100 cities came under attack, including the capital of Saigon. The Battle of Hue raged for weeks. Militarily, the North suffered enormous losses. But psychologically, it was a victory. Television brought shocking images into American homes. Many citizens realized the war was far from over. Support for President Johnson collapsed, and he announced he would not seek re-election. At home, the anti-war movement exploded. Demonstrations filled college campuses and city streets. Protesters carried signs demanding peace while families mourned sons lost overseas. The war that was meant to contain communism now threatened to tear America apart. In 1969, Richard Nixon became president, promising peace with honor. His policy of Vietnamization aimed to shift the burden of fighting to South Vietnamese forces while gradually withdrawing. U.S. troops' secret bombings of enemy sanctuaries in Cambodia and Laos sought to cut supply lines but widen the conflict. When the expansion became public, outrage erupted. The killings of 4 students at Kent State University in 1970 turned anger into grief and disbelief. By the early 1970s, fatigue and disillusionment defined both sides. More than 58,000 Americans had died. Over 150,000 were wounded. Estimates of Vietnamese death soldiers and civilians ranged from 2 to 3 million. Chemical defoliants such as Agent Orange devastated forests and caused lasting illness. The My Lai massacre of 1968, where U.S. soldiers killed hundreds of unarmed villagers, shocked the conscience of the world. Key leaders guided each nation through these years. In the United States, Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon shaped policy. Robert McNamara and Dean Rusk defended it. Henry Kissinger negotiated peace. In Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh and General Vo Nguyen Giap directed strategy from the north. After Ho's death in 1969, Le Duan continued the struggle. In the south, Nguyen Van Thu led a fragile government dependent on American aid. Public confidence eroded further when the Pentagon Papers were leaked in 1971, revealing that successive administrations had misled the public about progress and objectives. Anti-war sentiment reached its peak. Meanwhile, quiet negotiations in Paris moved toward a settlement. On January 27, 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed. They required a ceasefire, the release of prisoners, and the withdrawal of all U.S. forces. By March 1973, the last American combat troops left Vietnam. Fighting between North and South, however, continued. In early 1975, North Vietnam launched its final offensive. South Vietnam's defenses collapsed quickly. On April 30th, North Vietnamese tanks rolled into Saigon. American helicopters evacuated the last personnel from the embassy rooftop as desperate civilians tried to escape. The war was over. Vietnam was reunified under communist control and the capital renamed Ho Chi Minh City. The aftermath was grim. Vietnam's infrastructure lay in ruins. Millions were displaced, and countless families searched for missing loved ones. Economically isolated, the country struggled through famine and poverty, yet over time it rebuilt. Today, Vietnam's cities buzz with commerce and youth, even as reminders of the war linger in museums, memorials, and scarred landscapes. For the United States, the conflict left deep scars. Veterans returned to a divided nation. Many faced indifference instead of gratitude, carrying trauma that lasted decades. The government introduced the War Powers Act of 1973 to limit presidential authority to wage war. The press gained new independence, and the public became permanently cautious about foreign intervention. The term Vietnam Syndrome came to describe that hesitation. In 1982, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was dedicated in Washington, D.C. Its black granite wall bears more than 58,000 names, a solemn reminder of sacrifice. Visitors trace the carved letters with their hands, remembering friends, family, and a time that changed the nation. Globally, the war altered perceptions of U.S. power and morality. Allies questioned American leadership. Adversaries studied its limits. For many nations, Vietnam symbolized both the strength and the restraint of modern warfare. The lessons of the Vietnam War endure. It showed that superior technology cannot guarantee victory, that understanding culture and history is vital, and that public support at home is as important as strategy abroad. It remains a case study in how fear of ideology can escalate into prolonged conflict. Nearly 50 years later, the fields have grown green again and the cities thrive, but memory endures. For Vietnam, it was a war for unity and independence. For America, it was a test of conviction and conscience. For the world, it stands as a cautionary tale of power, politics, and the cost of misunderstanding. The Vietnam War was more than a battle between nations. It was a struggle that reshaped the modern age, a nation torn, a generation changed, and a story the world will never forget.